I think you're muted, Amy.
I am muted.
Make
Is this show that is it allowing me to be co-host?
I still can't hear you.
Oh no.
Why is that? It might be my computer. One second. Let me see if I might be connecting to my AirPods. 1 second. Let's see. Can you try saying something now?
Hello.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Okay. I'm going to admit Sarah, Dana, and Chloe.
Perfect. And you're the host now, so you can, you know, if anybody needs to screen share, you can make them a co-host.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. I just realized as I'm looking behind me that my kids dumped all their school stuff on the bed behind me. I'm going to go move that because it looks really tacky. I'll be right back. Hi, Sarah. I'll be right back.
I'm gonna turn off my camera real quick because I'm eating, and if we're recording, I should want like a recording of me eating for a second. So.
Okay, I think that's better. Dana, I heard you talking. Sorry. I was like, I didn't hear you though. What'd you say?
Oh, I was just saying I'm turning off my camera for a minute because I'm eating and I see that we're recording and I don't want a recording of me eating. So
that is totally okay. That is totally okay. No, I just finished scarfing down my dinner, so I get it. So we have, so I'm trying to see who's here. We have Dana, we have Sarah, we have Chloe. Hey, Chloe. And Jordan should be joining us here pretty soon, I think.
Didn't realize I was muted.
Oh, it's okay. Let me see who else is. Oh, I need to admit Haley. Let's see here. Okay. Hi, Haley. Okay. As long as, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. And Jordan should be joining us soon. He's also going to be hosting alongside me and moderating alongside me. I just wanted to introduce everybody, just get a chat because we haven't had a chance to get in the same Zoom room yet. And I know sometimes when we're hosting with others, in the past, we've kind of had the ability to get everyone together before, but I just feel like things are just moving so fast this summer and I don't know what that is, but it just is. But I wanted to introduce everybody. You don't have to turn your camera on right now if you're not ready. I know Dana's still finishing up dinner. I just did as well, but I'm Amy. Some of the Haley and I have met in person mainly because I go to the YMCA. And I had a chance to talk with Haley a long time ago when I was working at Bowie. It feels like forever ago. It was not long ago. And Sarah had a chance to meet through Healthy Hive. Luckily, they were able to come on and be a part of this panel and chat with us. And so Haley is the adaptive support director at YMCA. Sarah is a registered dietitian with Healthy Hive. And we also have Dana, who's on the call, who's one of our self-advocates has presented with us multiple times on multiple topics and occasions. So we're happy to have Dana here. And then Chloe's one of our friends from our social recreation group. And so we're so glad to have Chloe on. I don't think I'm missing anybody, but my name is Amy. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the workforce coordinator for Autism Society. And yeah, I'll just give everyone a chance to say hi and ask any questions before we get moving along here. Hey, Jordan just hopped on.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and the other dietitian at our practice, Lauren, is going to jump on as well any minute now. So
oh, good.
She's just going to pop in so she can observe.
That's awesome.
Or comment.
That's good. And Sarah, I did get your questions in the email, and I have them in front of me just so I can have them, ready to ask.
Yes, and I'm going to send you. I have an email ready for you too with some resources that I'll mention. So if you're sending a follow-up email to the attendees, you can include those.
That is awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. And if you want to put any of the resources, the chat will be active during the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
one of the things that I wanted to bring up to everybody just while we're thinking about it and talking about it is we really try to make the chat feature. We really try to make these panels just a conversation piece with whoever's listening. And we are recording, by the way. I just want to make sure everyone, I know I told all of you that, but I just want to make sure I'm reiterating that. And so that way, you know, we try to make these a conversation piece, informal, right? These panels tend to be more informal. They're designed to basically like make people feel like we went out to a coffee shop and had a conversation around an important topic to them, right? And they gain valuable information on it, because that's something that we want to do is equip, you know, individuals that listen with elements in their toolkit that they may not have had before, or perspectives that may not have been thought about prior to listening in. And so, and these panels tend to be, I find these panels really neat just because we get a chance to draw in different, you know, especially when we can do a couple of different topics in one, drawing in different thoughts and opinions. And I really think that, you know, we've had such good feedback from the previous ones we've done this way. And so anyway, I would just encourage everyone to, you know, relax and enjoy it as much as possible. And if you feel like there's questions coming in the chat, you're like, you need to answer, feel free to answer them. Jordan and I really try to moderate the chat, so that way the people speaking aren't distracted. Because sometimes I think when we're trying to talk and we're also trying to read stuff in the chat, it can be difficult. So don't feel pressure to read the questions in the chat. We're going to try and catch those. We also have a Google form that we put in the chat for people to be able to ask questions on that as well. So yeah. Yes, good. Thank you for including that. We have some behind the scenes Autism Society of Texas friends. Kate is working some of this, and then Jordan, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jordan. I'm the projects coordinator. I work closely with Amy here. And yeah, Kate, I didn't know you'd also be on the call, but Kate will also be helping out behind the scenes. And
yeah, I was just here to help with the very beginning, make sure all the tech's running smoothly, and then I'll probably hop off once y'all get started. But
right on.
My name will still be on there, so if you need me to come back, I obviously can.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate it.
Wait, one more joining us, Larissa.
Hi, Larissa.
Larissa, I'm sorry, I must have missed the name pop up.
Good to see you. Tonight's going to be super fun. And yeah, depending on the flow, I imagine we'll have a little time for Q&A at the end. And I'll be going in and taking a look at the responses. And, you know, I'll do my best to send those individually to those, you know, to whom it's directed. Just making sure we hit all the questions that are posted in the chat throughout. So yeah, if you have any questions or something's going wrong, you can message me directly. You know, my name is Jordan Fogel there. I think I'm logged in as Jordan. Yep. Logged in as Jordan. It always fluctuates. It's hard to keep track of who the heck I'm logged in as sometimes. But it's good to see everybody. Thank you for being here, Chloe. This is awesome.
Hey. Now I want to offer up, does anybody have any questions just initially that you're thinking up to the group or to us?
Well, so I just got my little like introduction that I wrote, and then like I don't really have much else. It's just like sort of when people asking me questions, I guess. Is that okay?
That is okay. I had some questions I was going to ask you, Chloe, if that's okay, and then we can kind of have it go naturally from there.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
I think you'll find that it'll feel a lot like a group. Excuse me, a lot like a group, or you know, just folks kind of chit-chatting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's very the thing too. We had Jordan. How many people? Did you see how many people?
33 people. RSVP. That probably means like 10 people will show up. That's usually my estimation.
That's what we've noticed, this trend where people will RSVP for things, and then like it's just been the show up rate has just been really low, which has been, you know, wasn't the case necessarily last year for the RSVP situation and the show up. So we made it, hopefully, you know, we had 33 people register, hopefully in RSVP, hopefully they'll join. If not, this is being recorded with the intent of being able to be shown on YouTube. And we do distribute these materials to our, to the members of our different groups. And we really try and make sure that this material is accessible because we feel like it is important. And we want to make sure people feel like they can watch it in their own time when they're ready. We know things come up for people. So
Quickly, I'll just mention, I feel obligated to, just because it's happened in the past, not that anyone here would do it, but you get the pop-up messages to let attendees in from the waiting room. And folks have let people in sort of early beforehand. So if you see any message that pops up on your screen, just allow Kate or myself to click admit when we're all ready, just to make sure we stay on track with that.
mm-hmm.
Amy, I think you'll need to make Jordan a co-host so that he can let people in from the waiting room.
Or Amy, you can do it if you want to.
Let me see.
Would you like, I can reclaim the host and make like everybody, all of our panelists co-hosts. That way if they need to share their screen and they can then mute or unmute themselves.
Yeah, that'd be great if all of our
Okay,
panelists can be
I'll do that
co-hosts.
right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, so now that you have the power, be careful with
Yeah.
it. If you could
power.
allow us to let everybody in.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Okay, let's see here. I'm just gonna pull this document up real quick and we'll get going here. We try to start at 7:30. So we want to make sure we give people a chance to, let's see here. All righty. See where we're at here.
Amy, and to confirm, we are sort of scheduled to wrap up around 9 o'clock?
Yes.
Or 9 o'clock. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll wrap up, 9 o'clock or before, then everyone's ready. So yeah, does anybody have any last minute thoughts or questions for one another? Okay, and we do bounce, and just to let you know, we do bounce this information like kind of back and forth to each other. There are certain things that I know like is a field of expertise for some of us on the call, and so we want to honor that space as well and make sure we're, making sure we're deferring to that. But we do try and like create conversation around each individual topic. So we may be asking you questions within our own group or making additional comments. And so, yeah.
I would say we have 1 minute if you need like a last minute drink of water or to take a breath or go to the restroom or something, do it now. And we'll go ahead and let folks in.
Was that me? My phone was making noise. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and welcome people that are coming in. Jordan, you're letting people in, correct?
Yeah. You want me to start admitting?
Yeah, you can start admitting people just because it is 7:30. We want to make sure we're, must have been my alarm going off. But I want to welcome everybody that's kind of coming into the waiting area right now or coming out of the waiting area into the Zoom session tonight. And we're going to give everybody another minute. I know people are slowly coming in out of the waiting room, and we want to welcome everyone. We just ask that as you are coming into the Zoom room that you make sure you're muted so there's not a distraction for everybody else. Okay. All right. Well, I want to go ahead and officially welcome everyone to our Healthy Habits panel. For those of you that are joining the call, you have, who just joined, you are looking at a wonderful group of presenters, and I probably should have mentioned this to them before, but I'm going to have all the presenters who are doing this panel, participating in the panel, introduce themselves. And what I will do is kind of do a little bit of an intro and let you introduce the topic, and Jordan can cover a little bit of housekeeping stuff if there is any for the actual, for the duration of the panel. So our Healthy Habits panel, we are wanting to focus on some areas that have come up for a lot of people, especially in the last 2 years, that have felt like, I think, a vacuum for many, regarding how we set goals for ourselves and how we feel about ourselves and feel in our own bodies. And a lot of this has to do with sleep, nutrition, dietary habits, and making and setting doctor's appointments, taking care of ourselves in that regard, and healthy body movement. And so we want to recognize at the start of this call, before we even get into these topics, that these individual areas that we're discussing, which honestly could be entire sessions on their own. If we take these different topics, we can make entire sessions just because of how much they impact us. So we want to recognize, number one, that everybody is in a different place in their lives and in their bodies and how they move through the world. And we want to make sure we're honoring each person individually. Okay. And so we want to set an intention at the beginning of this thing that is what we are recognizing. And so we hope that you walk away from this panel feeling a little bit better about setting goals for yourselves, even if, even if they feel small to you, right? If we can move the needle forward for ourselves just a little bit in how we care for ourselves and love ourselves, that's huge, right? We also want to recognize in this conversation that we are holistic beings, and not, a lot of times people want to have conversations about nutrition, right? And that's great. That's important. Sleep is important, right? All these things we're talking about are really important. Body movement's really important. But those things don't operate in vacuums on their own. We have to look at ourselves from holistic, whole being viewpoints. And so that's one of the things we want to do tonight, is just really kind of take that viewpoint with everyone and respect the space that everyone's in. We are going to let Jordan mention a little bit about, and I didn't even introduce myself. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here chatting. I'm Amy Kellogg. I'm the workforce coordinator here at Autism Society of Texas. We are going to let Jordan talk a little bit about some housekeeping stuff regarding the chat and how to ask a question in the chat, and if you want to remain anonymous as well. And then I will proceed to our guest panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll get started. Jordan.
Hello there, everyone. My name is Jordan Fogel. I'm the projects coordinator at the Autism Society of Texas. And tonight I'll be helping out a little bit behind the scenes. If you'd like to submit a question anonymously, we've posted a Google form in the chat thread for you to access. And we'll go ahead and make sure to get that answered by the end of tonight's presentation. And also, if you just want to ask a question in the chat thread as it occurs to you, feel free to do that, and we'll make sure we hit it toward the end of our conversation. Yeah, so again, there's a Google form in the chat thread for you to submit questions anonymously, questions that may be more sensitive or personal to you. And you're also welcome to post in the chat thread itself. So we look forward to having a little bit of a Q&A a little bit later on.
Yeah, and if you think of any questions as we're talking that you want to direct towards one person in particular, we can work on getting that question to them. If we don't get around to it necessarily during the time we're together, we can email it to them and put you in contact. So that's fine too. So, all right, well, let's get started with introductions. Chloe, do you mind if we start with you, having you introduce yourself? Oh, Chloe, you're muted. Mute myself.
Sorry about that. My name is Chloe Spiangersberg. I'm 24 years old and I have CMT, which is a peripheral neuropathy that affects mainly my hands and legs. Because of this, I use a wheelchair full time.
Okay.
And I'm going to be talking to you guys about body movements today.
Thank you, Chloe. And I'm so glad you're here. And Chloe comes to us from our adult social and recreation group. So, and I believe Jordan did put something about this, the social recreation group. I may be seeing things, but I think I saw that in the chat somewhere. If not, we'll put it in there somewhere about how to find out more about that. So Haley, do you mind? I'm kind of going for the way I'm seeing people this direction.
Hi everyone, my name is Haley Therese. I work for the YMCA of Austin as the Adaptive Program Director. So my role focuses a lot on creating programs and opportunities for those with disabilities. And then I also focus just on accessibility of our facilities and accommodations that we can offer to those that are already members that may not be looking for a specialized program, but a program that we already have or a class we have. So yeah, that's my role here in Austin.
Thank you, Haley. We're so glad you're there. Such an important role. Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Harris, and I'm a registered dietitian with Healthy Hive Family Nutrition. And our practice works with families on, an array of nutrition issues, from picky eating to food allergies, sometimes just general nutrition. So I'm excited to be here today and talk to you about nutrition and hear what questions you have for us.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. We're so glad you're here. Dana.
Yeah, hello, my name is Dana Sayre, and I have been volunteering with the Autism Society for a little while. I was doing the ACT Blend program through UT Austin as a self-advocate, and then I'm also a registered drama therapist.
Excellent. And Dana, for anybody who missed it, Dana is, if anybody has questions, if you don't mind, Dana, for me saying this on this call, since Dana is a registered drama therapist, if anybody has, feel free, any of these individuals on this call, Haley, Sarah, Dana, that provide a service, if anybody wants to just pop in the chat and say, hey, can I get your contact information to reach out to set up, feel free to do that as well, because that's a good time to, it's such a great time to connect with and network with people in the community. So Larissa.
Hi, I'm Larissa. I'm autistic and I'm also an autism advocate. I do consultant work and advocacy, and I lead a support group. And I also have a YouTube channel where I educate the public about autism.
Oh, I'm muted still. Thanks, Larissa. And feel free, Larissa, at some point towards when we get to the Q&A section, to post your YouTube channel link, because I want to make sure that everyone can access that from this call as well. So yeah, we are just, again, we're so happy to have everyone here. Let's go ahead and dive into some of these topics, because again, these are pretty big topics. And I know that everyone listening is probably thinking of something that maybe, I feel like at certain points in our lives, I don't want to say struggle. I hate using the word struggle, maybe wrestle with a little bit more than others at times. I know, for myself, patterns of, I get motivated to be physically active, and then I hit pockets of just like, I don't even want to think about doing anything right now. Like, I just have such a difficult time with that. Other times I've been through pockets in my life where sleep is elusive, and I, kind of situational or hormone related insomnia, and then having to work through that. So let's go ahead and talk about sleep. We're going to introduce that topic first, because sleep is, it's something that we all do to some degree, right? Of course we do, the eating and sleeping are things that we kind of have to do. And so I would love for us to open up and discuss, how is sleep foundational? And I'm going to hand it to Dana here in a minute. We're going to let Dana open up with this part, but how is sleep foundational? And, Yeah, and what does it mean for our bodies? So Dana, would you like to take this first part?
I mean, I guess I wasn't prepared to answer those questions, I guess,
Okay.
but I'm happy to sort of talk about my relationship to sleep or sort of
Why don't you talk about that first? Let's talk about your relationship to sleep, and then we can, as a group, talk about those other questions. That'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I've struggled to maintain a consistent sleep schedule for a long time. And I tend to be a night owl, so it's definitely hard for me to go to sleep before midnight, but I think left to my own devices, I sort of tend to stay up to like 2, 3, 4 a.m. So I guess like the first thing I want to say is that, as I have done more research and like understood how neurodivergence can impact sleep, delayed sleep phase is a thing that a lot of neurodivergent people struggle with, especially autism and ADHD, although also, people with anxiety and depression or, PTSD and other things, sleep may be impacted. So I think it's worth noticing if you just have trouble sleeping because you're not tired, or if something else is going on. And I think what's been the most helpful for me is just trying as much as possible to adjust my schedule to better meet my needs. And I know that's not always possible for everyone, but, when I've had jobs that start later, in the day, like, if you can't work evenings, there are some jobs that, start at 10 a.m., versus 8 a.m. or things like that. And then there's a million sleep hygiene tips. And I feel like I always get a little bit triggered when you tell someone you're having trouble sleeping and they're like, have you considered sleep hygiene? But I do just want to offer the things that have helped me, and I struggle to implement them consistently. But these are some of the things that I found useful. So it could help to sort of play around, with different sleep hygiene strategies and see if any of them are useful to you or not, or if you notice a difference, and whether that's just anecdotally, or if you try, to do some bullet journal or some kind of way of trying to track your sleep. So I got an electric massager that has like a heat cycle. So I found that can really help, just like the heat is relaxing, and then getting some of the tension out of my shoulders can kind of help wind me down a little bit for sleep. Or drinking herbal teas. There's any variety of calming herbs, whether that's like lavender, chamomile, tulsi, sort of whatever just tastes good to you. If you like tea, or if you don't like the taste, you could do any kind of supplements, I'm sure. Those are available as well. And then I know we'll be talking about body movement later, but sometimes if I'm having a hard time sleeping, doing some light stretching, or things like that can help. And then I found that having a white noise machine, and even, listening to like an audiobook or a podcast, will help if I'm sort of having the thoughts, that it's just like, you can't stop thinking about stuff you need to do, or stuff that happened, or if it's more anxiety or worry related. I found that having the white noise, or sort of having something to direct my focus to, can help. So there's any variety of YouTube videos and things like that, whether it's guided meditations or, ambient noise, or just finding someone, that you feel kind of has a soothing voice. And that'll sort of help me drift off and then fall back asleep faster if I do wake up in the middle of the night.
Thank you, Dana, so much. And that's a piece of it too, is that, yeah, I fell asleep, but I'll wake up and now I can't go back to sleep, and I'm curious, has anybody else listening or on the call have had that experience where you wake up and can't go back to sleep?
I definitely have. I've definitely had that before. Yeah.
Chloe, is there anything you found that helps you when that happens?
I don't know. It just sort of depends. If it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm just like, I'm up for the day. And actually, I just started to get this. I listen to this music on Spotify, just like peaceful piano music, just like acoustic piano music, and it's just really nice. And I just put it on like a 30-minute sleep timer, and I just lay there, and I just try to calm down my body, and it's helpful. So
that's nice. Yeah, I'm kind of hearing a connection between the music, maybe like listening to something calming, and that helps with that. Dana had some ideas around things that are warming, like herbal tea, something, massage device that provides warmth. I know a lot of people use weighted blankets to help them when they lay down, to just find that cozy spot, for lack of a better term, to help you feel. I think sometimes when we go to fall asleep, we want to feel safe, right? We want to feel like, okay, we're our bodies feel like our bodies can rest, and our nervous systems can get to a point where we can fall asleep. That's really big and important. And I would love to just something that, and I put some some of these thoughts in the chat as well, like about the stretching, the white noise machine, audiobook or podcast. I've seen a lot of people use audiobooks. They find some that either the voice of the person talking helps them, or the content just relaxes them because it's tied to something that is relaxing and meaningful for them. And also just having that something that Dana mentioned that I think is really important is whenever I've gone through periods of insomnia, it would really frustrate me so much when people would say, oh, well, your rest is so important. You need your rest, right? Well, sleep is important. Well, I know sleep is important, right? Because I'm trying to get better at this, And so I think one of the things we can even walk away from tonight, a piece of information we can just sort of, I think, put into the backdrop of our brains is that, when we talk about things that people can do to help themselves, or we observe people in a situation where like, oh, they should do this, we want to avoid the should language with a lot, in a lot of cases, because number one, we don't know what people are going through. Number two, we don't know where that person is at with that experience or what they've tried yet. So just being cautious, to be sensitive to each other in how we approach those things. So, yeah, and I believe there were some suggestions put in the chat about ASMR experiences. Some people, swear by those, and other people can't, just really, I feel like it's really divided line on ASMR about what people feel about that. So, but sleep is foundational, and we do want to make sure that we are, if you're, having difficulty sleeping, talking to somebody that can help you through that. I know there is I've been referred to cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, specifically offered by therapists in the area. So if you have a therapist and you're having difficulty sleeping, CBT for insomnia is a thing. So I just found that out myself in the last year. So that may be something that you want to store in your toolkit to talk to your therapist about as well. Does anybody else have anything they want to on the panel that they want to add about sleep before we move on?
I wanted to add, when it comes to, so with the therapy aspect of it, you get a lot of grounding techniques. If you go to therapy, oftentimes if you suffer from anxiety or depression or anything like that, they'll give you a lot of grounding techniques. And I have found that for myself personally, if I have a hard time sleeping, turning to some of those grounding techniques that I use throughout the day to help keep my composure and stay calm and feel okay to get through the day have also helped me when it comes to sleeping. And I think it ties back into refocusing on something else. So whether it's your breathing or relaxing a specific muscle group in your body, often I like to start, from the bottom, just making sure my feet are fully relaxed, and then working up to my calf muscles are fully relaxed, and just kind of focusing on that and just listening to your body and what your body is telling you. It has helped me. I'm not saying it's the fixture for everything, but it has helped me. And I think it just ties into where you're talking about music or something else to turn your focus to, that sometimes sometimes those things that help you during the day can also help you at night as well.
Thank you so much, Haley. That was really great. Yeah, that whole, like, I'm gonna focus on different parts of my body to kind of make sure it's all relaxed from where's the tongue in my mouth? Is it clenched to the roof of my mouth, or is it relaxed to my toes? You know, how am I feeling in my whole body? Did somebody else want to say something before we move on? Dana?
I've actually, sorry, you go. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Sorry. Yeah, maybe we should do the raised hands would be better. Yeah, I was just going to say one more thing I thought of, and I think this has been backed up by research evidence, but I've also found that if you really just can't fall asleep and to the point that you're starting to get frustrated about it, sometimes it is better to just get up and do something else for a little bit until you feel tired. You know, if you've just been laying there for like 30, 45 minutes and now you're just sort of counting down how many, you know, hours of sleep am I gonna get, and kind of upsetting yourself, and like probably not, you know, doing anything super activating, but even just like finding a book to read or like drawing for a little bit, or just some kind of activity that you can do until you like start to feel sleepy and then try again. Because I think sometimes we feel like, oh, I should just force myself to like lay in bed, you know, until I fall asleep. But sometimes it can help to just get up, you know, for a little bit and do something else and then try again. So that's another option.
I was gonna say I've done a lot of research lately because I've been having trouble, and I learned that it's good to have like 30 minutes of sleep versus no sleep at all, like because it helps reset your brain or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Dana. Yeah, absolutely. Those are really good tips, and definitely a lot of but you know, research-based best practice offered there as well, as far as, you know, what we were talking about, and especially what Dana mentioned with not, you know, getting up and doing something. Don't just lay in bed all night trying to fall asleep, because that's not productive either. So yeah, and let's go ahead and move into discussing body movement, because I know, like, even in playing in kind of off the sleep conversation, I know that body movement can actually help, you know, in a lot of regards with how we sleep. And so I would, let's see here. Yeah, so I would love to just talk a little bit about body movement now, and discussing how we can incorporate that into our daily lives. Chloe, would you mind if we start with you discussing this particular topic?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, you're gonna ask me something?
No, you go ahead. I would love for you to start with any thoughts you have.
I was just gonna say, one of the thoughts I have is exercising is definitely a good one, even a little bit. For some things I do as a person in a wheelchair is I actually have I have an arm bike over here, like a hand bike. And then I just have like my stretchy little resistance bands. I'll dance, and just getting some fresh air is also very helpful. As far as falling asleep, being active like at all can be good.
Thank you, Chloe, for sharing that. I would actually love, I know Larissa had something that she wanted to say, and I'm sorry, I couldn't see. For some reason, I'm only seeing 3 people at a time. I'm switching back and forth. Larissa, did you have something you wanted to add?
About the sleep.
You want to, yeah, go ahead.
Or is that okay?
Yeah.
I'll just be very quick.
That's okay.
I found it helpful to just limit anything that I find too exciting or actually enjoy, like I'm interested, or that I find stimulating, and that helps. And I also, to add on to what Chloe said about the 30 minutes, I limit any naps I take to be 30 minutes, and that's it.
It's a good idea. Yeah, making sure that you're not setting up your body to not be able to fall asleep at the time you need to. So thanks, Larissa, for sharing that. I really appreciate it. So Chloe, I have a question for you. Now, you mentioned you have a hand cycle you use that you keep kind of in close proximity. What are some of the things that you have found help you in that regard? Because I noticed kind of that language of it's near me, right? It's convenient for me. What are some other things that you found that they're convenient, that you're able to keep kind of close to you, that help you in this process?
Well, like, let's see, right in arm's reach, I have this thing, just like a resistance band, so like I can watch TV and just like do some resistance stuff. I've also found some virtual adaptive classes, which is really cool. I'm currently doing this boxing one, and then there are like some dance, like there's actually this dance class by this wheelchair dance team, like puts on a dance class every week, and it's really cool. I haven't actually been to one, but pretty sort of excited to do that one day. And just like there's just so many options out there, like so many things I can do nowadays. So as long as I have the motivation to do them.
And that can be the tricky part, right?
Definitely.
Have you found, and I would love to ask this question to both you and Dana, because I know Dana was going to also talk about this a little bit. And I'm sorry, I need to widen my screen so I can see everybody at once. So if you have your hand raised and I don't get to you right away, I'm sorry. But I would love to know, like, as far as talking about motivation, what have you found to be effective in, I guess, goal setting, for lack of a better term, towards your personal fitness goals?
Well, like, for example, just having something near that I can do while I'm watching TV. So even if I don't want to get away from my TV, I can still do something. I know my parents, for example, have a TV in their workout room. And like I'll like listen to an audiobook while working out or doing something like that. It just helps to have something there to motivate you, so you're not like bored while exercising necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chloe, for answering that. And then also, Dana, did you have any thoughts around that one?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I have trouble with doing exercise for the sake of exercise. So one thing that motivates me is just to only do activities that I actually get some satisfaction out of doing, whether that's yoga or walking or dance. And so it might be different for everyone, but if it's an activity that I intrinsically enjoy, it's much easier to motivate myself to do it. And it's kind of, I guess, a head game, but I don't like even sometimes consider it like exercise, because I think I can have like so much of a block around that. And then I feel like it can seem counterintuitive, but making goals really small has helped me increase motivation, because I think it's easy, you know, especially like there's can be so much pressure on like New Year's resolutions, or sort of whenever you sort of get to the point that you're setting a goal, it can be so easy to go from like, right now you're doing nothing and you're like, okay, I'm gonna like exercise 5 days a week for 45 minutes, you know, and you make this huge goal. And so then like the first week that you don't do it, it's like, oh, I'm, you know, a failure, or I can't ever do anything, or like all that negative self-talk starts. So I feel like, you know, I will now sort of do the opposite and set like a super realistic goal where it's like, I'm going to go on a walk once, you know, or for 5 minutes, you know, or something. And then when you do it, or like I do like reverse psychology, I guess, on myself a lot, where I'm like, I'm just going to go check the mail. And then sometimes, you know, by the time I like already have my shoes on and I've like walked to my mailbox, if the weather's nice, you know, maybe I'm kind of incentivized to sort of like, okay, maybe I'll walk around the block. And then, you know, I can kind of like convince myself to go longer and longer. So I think just setting those small goals, I can get that like positive reinforcement. Whereas if I start with like too big of a goal, sometimes I can be setting myself up for failure.
It's so true. Like we get really just huge in our language with how we want to approach these things, when really those you know, one step in front of the other oftentimes is that better approach. And I'm gonna, here in a minute, I want to hand it to Haley. Oh, Larissa, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, is that okay?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
So Dana mentioned positive reinforcement. So something that I am trying is kind of rewarding myself for when I am exercising or moving my body. And that's as simple as like saying good job, or I did this. And I'm hoping to reinforce you know, positive feelings with exercise. And the other thing that I'm finding helpful is exercising for myself instead of like, oh, I have to. So I'm finding that's helping my outlook. And also I'm finding music. So that kind of goes with what Chloe was saying with the distraction. So that's what I find helpful so far.
And going off of what Larissa said, I actually have a Facebook group of friends where, and this is for like a variety of habits, not just exercise, but sort of anything, you know, that we have trouble, you know, having the energy or motivation for, and like everybody, you know, has some kind of disability that they're dealing with. You can like post that you did whatever the thing was that you were having a hard time doing and get like stickers or positive reinforcement from other people in the group. So I found that super helpful. So even if you could just find like one, you know, person or like a friend or somebody that could be that accountability person, that, I mean, not to say you can't give it to yourself, but I think sometimes that external reinforcement can help you.
Thank you. And I'm typing this kind of in the chat for everyone who's listening to also be able to read it, and maybe as they're scrolling through, go back to it. Some of the things you all are saying are so helpful. Find an accountability. Sorry guys, I can't talk and type at the same time. So find some sort of accountability partner that's great, that can help kind of reinforce those good things in each other, and be understanding when the outcome isn't what you hoped it would be for that particular time, because we really have to go easy on ourselves and be gentle with ourselves in this capacity. So I'm gonna ask one more question to Chloe and Dana, and if Larissa, you want to pop in here too, you can, and I'm going to talk to Haley a little bit about what YMCA is doing to help further this conversation. So, and I hope I'm saying this in a way that's, please feel free to ask me to reframe the question if I need to. Okay. But what kind of ideas do you think we have in our culture that might be prohibitive and problematic for those wanting to set healthy habits for themselves in this regard?
I could definitely say the idea of having the perfect body, for example. There's definitely a lot more, like, I've been seeing a lot of plus size models, which I love. I used to be a little bigger myself, and I love that. I have a little trouble with, like, I don't know. That's really my one thing I can think of.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we don't really get shown the true diversity of different bodies and body types. And for, you know, a variety of reasons, you know, there may be specific types of movement, you know, that are challenging or that someone just can't do. And so I think normalizing that and helping people figure out, and I think also, like, we put so much pressure on health as like a moral failing and like a personal responsibility, but I also think there are like so many factors of our health that are actually outside of our control, and that doesn't mean that we don't have any agency or that we can't set healthy habits. But I think there's this kind of overarching narrative that if you aren't kind of this epitome of perfect health, that you are lazy or you've done something wrong or you just don't care about yourself. And that is not necessarily true. There are so many reasons that people, you know, may struggle with any of these things. And, you know, I know even like my physical education classes in school were like not geared towards helping me find like joy in movement or like creativity, you know, or discovering, you know, what I was interested in. And so I think people can have, you know, if people aren't sort of like athletically inclined, there can be like so much shame around that, and then it can be so like legitimately traumatizing, you know. And I think that's why even, you know, I've had to kind of set up these like, I don't consider that I'm exercising, like even when I am, because just like the thought of exercise has like so much weight around it. And like, you know, as a fat person, you get so much, you know, everybody's just like, oh, you should exercise, you know, and lose weight all the time. So that can be demotivating. So yeah, I mean, I think there's so much there.
I can't believe I didn't say this, but you definitely don't see enough disabled people in media and social stuff, you know, like there's actually like really incredible people like putting disability out there. There's a whole modeling agency towards disabled people. I actually myself have an Instagram account where I'm trying to get the word out about certain disabilities, and just trying to the disability pride and stuff. Like I've had trouble myself. Like I never liked the way I looked in pictures in my wheelchair, and I'm trying to get over that. Like I'm trying to consciously think about like why I don't like that and trying to sort of get myself over it, you know. But there's just certain things ingrained in society that but it's definitely like getting much better. Like there's disabled Barbies now. Have you guys seen that? It's like a Barbie with hearing aids and Barbie in a wheelchair. It's really cool.
Thank you, Chloe, for sharing that. And Dana.
Could I share one more?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just wanted to talk a little bit, I guess, thinking about like movement and stress, you know, related stuff, or just kind of some stuff that I found helpful. I have a foam roller, which it's just kind of like this, and any place that sells like yoga stuff will probably have one. But I feel like especially I'm like sitting, you know, all the time and doing computer stuff, and I feel like a lot of people do. And so it can really help with just kind of like stretching out your back, which I feel like if I'm like really like tired and grumpy and I'm just like, and then I go do my foam roller for 30 minutes, I'm like, oh, I feel like a human being again. So I feel like sometimes we don't realize like how much tension we're holding in our bodies. And then if you like that and you decide you wanted like a little bit more focused pressure, you can even just use a tennis ball. And so for example, I'll put that like in between my shoulder blades or kind of at the base of my neck, or sort of anywhere you can sort of feel. If you've ever gotten like a traditional massage, there's kind of the difference between like ow pain and like, oh, that's like pressure pain. So the tennis ball, there will be pressure, but it'll be like good pressure, but it's usually there's kind of like a spot on either side of your spine and that you can put it, and it'll just kind of help that muscle relax. So I feel like that combined with some stretching is kind of like a low buy-in kind of movement that I'll do, that I feel like really does make a really big difference in just kind of relaxing some of those muscles and sort of getting you out of like the traditional posture that I feel like we can all get stuck in if we have like sedentary jobs.
Those are great suggestions, Dana. Thank you. I put a couple of them in the chat. Yeah, sometimes I think we get what's that called, shrimp, sitting like shrimp. You kind of sit, you know. So when you get into when you break out the foam roller and the and those, you know, different mats, blocks, bolsters, whatever you can get in your house that it can help you be comfortable. A lot of times it brings awareness to your posture too. So, Haley, let's see, I didn't miss anybody, did I, as far as what? Okay. If anybody else wants to say something, be sure to throw it in the chat or nudge me and I can make sure I don't miss it. So Haley is the adaptive sports director at our programs director at YMCA. And I would love to talk to Haley about, I'll let Haley talk a little bit about what the YMCA is doing and what you've observed in your work.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what you've all been talking about of the barriers that you face personally when it comes to working out or exercising, they're very common just in barriers that we see day to day at the Y, especially when it comes to working out. I mean, I talk to people all day long who their biggest struggle is just making it here to the Y in the first place. And so we try to really encourage that. You made it here. That is a huge step. Be proud of yourself for that. And what I love about what a lot of you have shared is that there's no one way to exercise. There is a lot of ways to get your body moving, and it's about what feels right for you and what feels good for you. And so since I've started at the Y, I put a lot of focus on, yes, having programs that are specifically for our disability community, but also taking a look at what we offer on a day-to-day basis and how can we make sure that that is fully inclusive and accessible to anyone that comes to the Y, because inclusivity is forever my number one goal when it comes to programming here at the Y. And we have a few locations throughout Austin. I travel to a few of them, but I'm housed mainly at one. And so it's hard to make sure that all of the branches are upholding the same standards that I know we uphold here at our Southwest location. But hopefully over time, as I work more for the Y, I'll be able to spread what I'm doing here to the other locations around Austin as well. But when it comes to that, I focus a lot on making sure our staff are as open and inviting as I am as a person. And we've done a lot of training for that, just to make sure that if you walk in our doors, we are going to have something that you can access that helps you feel good so that you leave here and you don't feel defeated. You don't feel like you never want to work out again. Because gyms come with this kind of stigma that you have to come in, know exactly what you're going to do, know how to do all of the machines and list all the ways that people are going to stare at you and be like, that person doesn't know what they're doing. Why are they here? And fortunately, the Y doesn't have that kind of negative attitude towards working out. And we have staff specifically to help teach you how to use equipment. It's included as a part of your membership that you can match with somebody who will show you how to use every single piece of equipment that we have here at the Y, and can also help create a program for working out or for exercising that meets what your body is looking for, because it's not a one size fits all approach. And we just try to instill that, and we meet every person where they are at. I don't know, I'm going to pause if anyone has any questions on that piece of it, or any comments that they want to share. Okay, if not, I can kind of keep going.
I had a thought. It resonated with me when you mentioned, yeah, not knowing what you're doing and feeling silly about that, because I must admit, I have no idea what I'm doing in a gym.
It can be extremely overwhelming. I mean, when you walk into a gym, there are so many pieces of equipment that you can use. And there are still things, I mean, I work in a gym every single day, and I will tell you, there are still pieces of equipment that I look at and I'm like, I have no clue what that is supposed to do or how that is supposed to help me. And I'm going to stay as far away from that for as long as I possibly can. And that's okay too. Like, once you find a few things that work for you, as long as you enjoy them and they make you feel good, it is perfectly great to stick with that set of routine for as long as it still feels good for you. I always say that until it doesn't feel good, that's when you need to find something different, and find something else that helps you feel good. Chloe Kelly talked about dancing. That is my #1 go-to favorite exercise in the world. I grew up dancing, and so when I came to the Y, the first program I started was an adaptive dance program because that was my background and it was what I was passionate about. And I still have it. I mean, we meet once a week. We have so much fun, and it is, I mean, I will guide movements, but it is you do what your body feels like doing and what makes you happy and have fun with it. If you are moving and you are having fun, then I consider that a successful class. And I think that's so important for every exercise that you do. I can't instill that enough. If your body is moving and you are having fun, you are getting something out of it, and it's so healthy for you both physically and mentally and emotionally and holistically.
Thank you so much for sharing that information. And would you, and everybody who's presenting, I'm going to ask before we end tonight that you all put, if it's okay to put your email address or your contact information or how to sign up with whatever program that you're promoting, or, you know, just so we can, so the listeners can have kind of a takeaway to say if they're interested in doing that, they know how to get a hold of it. So, and that's so important. And I would like to just sort of add here that if you're in if you decide to go to attend a class, and this is something that, you know, I've had to, you know, having had major surgery recently and getting back into working out stuff, I've had to sort of, you know, learn myself is that when you go to a class, if the instructor is doing it at a certain pace and you need to modify that for yourself, don't be afraid to modify it for yourself. If you're in a group, if you want to exercise in a group setting, and it's whether it's dance or, you know, anything else, you know, everyone should walk into an environment feeling free and comfortable to modify that exercise or that activity for themselves, you know, for whatever is good for you in that moment. So I just want to, I don't know if anybody needs to give permission here, but I feel like I want to, because it's just become so obvious that, you know, sometimes we go along with the flow because we think it's what we're supposed to be doing. But if our bodies are saying, no, that's not what I'm ready for, that's not what I want to be doing, that's okay too. You know, that is absolutely okay too.
On that note, I feel like one more thing that I found useful for myself, like even though I've been doing yoga off and on for decades, often I'll do like the beginner yoga class because I feel like they're more likely to go at a slower pace or provide modification. So I feel like, you know, just choosing the type of class that, again, you know, goes at the pace that feels good for you and that like gets you the benefits that you need is more important than, you know, feeling like, oh, I shouldn't do, you know, the beginner class, or that somehow makes me, you know, less than or something like that, because none of that is true.
No judgment, right?
I love that you said that and shared that, because I think people tend to forget how many options are available when it comes to exercise or different types of classes that you can take. And so I just encourage, if you try a class, if it doesn't go as you had hoped that it went, don't let that discourage you from trying something else, because they are all just so vastly different that you're not going to have that same experience in the exact same way a second time if you try something new. So that's great that you shared that, because again, if you're moving and you're enjoying it, you are exercising. There's no one perfect way to exercise for anybody.
And Haley, I did have one more question for you. If somebody's interested in, for example, coming to tour the Y to see what programs are available, is there something they can ask for to help, like, you know, I would like someone to give me a tour that understands maybe what my needs are, or, you know, like, is there something you recommend there to help out in that?
Yeah, so there's a few options. Well, I'll post my email. And so if you know that you want to come and tour the Y, you can always email me first and we can set it up that I can make sure I'm here and can help you. Just go through our facility. If you want to check out another facility that maybe is closer to you, I have the capability to travel so that I can come and meet you there. But our staff at the Y is very welcoming and understanding of all of the needs that come through our door. And I take a lot of pride in that. But they are also very understanding and open to questions. So if you have specific questions about needs that you may have or accommodations that you may need, that they don't cover, I just really want to encourage you, do not be afraid to ask those questions, because they will either be able to provide you an answer, or they will call me or find me or help, find somebody that can help provide that answer. So if that is something that you are interested in, I would encourage you to stop by your local Y if you have one near you, and they're very accommodating and open to helping. And we have a lot of staff, again, that I said can show you specific equipment that you're looking for, specific exercises that you would like to learn how to do, and just walk you through all of the options that are available for you. With that being said, your first visit is free. So it's not, if you wanted to come in and take a tour and then you want to come back and try it another time to see if it's right for you before you sign up, that first visit is free. We encourage that. It's your guest pass, so you can see, like a try before you buy type of thing. And then the same thing for our classes or programs that I offer. You always come to the first class free of charge in case it is not what is working for you. It was not the right fit for you. You don't lose anything if you have a financial barrier. We do offer financial assistance as well. I just want to put that out there in case anyone is concerned with finances being a barrier. We have a membership for all programs, so we don't have to turn anyone away due to cost.
Oh, that's so good to know, Haley. Thank you so much. One of the things I love about the Y, I feel like it's so much community focused. So thank you so much. Wow, that was really good. I took away a lot from that segment. And if anybody wants to throw anything in the chat about that, questions or just reminders in the chat, feel free. I would like to move on to nutrition and healthy habits around food. So I am going to, Sarah is our resident dietitian, our registered dietitian on the call this evening. So I'm going to hand it over to Sarah to lead us into the conversation around nutrition and eating.
Hi, yeah. Hi, everyone. I was actually just thinking about something as y'all were talking about movement and just how it ties into nutrition. And one thing specifically that I talk to people that I work with about who are having a hard time including movement is just getting outside. And I think that was something that Dana said as well, is just walking outside and getting fresh air. The sunshine is amazing for our bodies. It provides a nutrient, vitamin D, that is, tied into nutrition, but it really helps boost our mood and our energy levels. And so that's just one suggestion that kind of ties nutrition in from my end is, even if you don't feel like you can exercise, maybe you have an injury or you're just not quite feeling that, just going outside and getting sunshine, early in the day, if you can really just help you to feel better. And maybe then you will decide to go for a walk and get that body movement. But even if you don't, you are getting that energy boosting effect from the sunshine. But moving into nutrition, nutrition, I think in pop culture, a lot of times it's so often tied to weight. And I really, dislike the fact that it's so often tied to aesthetics. There's really so much more to it. And, really the bulk of the importance of nutrition is it's as important as sleep and as movement. It just really has real power in impacting how we feel both mentally and physically. And so, that idea of we need to eat the right foods to have this perfect body, that is not where my mind goes when I think about nutrition. And so, I like to focus on thinking about the way we eat is going to impact our bodies in all sorts of ways. Some foods we eat can give us energy and make us feel better. Well, some foods, or even sometimes a lack of food, can zap our energy levels. There are foods that can increase our anxiety. Sometimes we might have health problems going on, like gastrointestinal issues, that can be worsened by certain foods we're eating. And so I feel like the impact of food on body weight is, kind of at the bottom of the list of importance. So I always like to talk to people, about that part of it. One of the questions that I get often from people when they hear that I'm a dietitian, and even when I work with clients, one of the things they want is they just want a list of foods. They're always like, what should I be eating? What is the perfect thing to eat? And really, there's just no perfect diet. It varies so much from person to person based on preferences and needs. There are certain people who might have food allergies or sensitivities or health problems that limit certain foods that we can eat, but there's not, I'm not going to say to people like, oh, you need to follow a ketogenic diet. There's just not a perfect way to eat. So I like people to kind of drop that concept that, there is this perfect diet that if we can achieve it, we're then going to have this perfect body or feel perfect, in our mind. And that's just not the way it is. I really like to stick to kind of 2 rules when it comes to what we should be eating. And these are just general rules that I think can help most anyone to feel better. The first of those is eating fewer processed foods. And when I say processed foods, I'm talking about things that when you look at them, they generally come in a box and you can tell that they were somehow made in a factory. If we can include less of those in what we're eating on a daily basis, most of the time, we're going to cut out some of the things that might be negatively impacting the way we feel. When they make processed foods, they're a lot of times adding sugar, adding salt, and different chemicals that can impact the way we feel and impact our mood. And it doesn't have to be a complete overhaul. It might just be one day of the week, choosing to have, if you typically grab like crackers or chips as a snack, grab a piece of fruit instead. It's, small changes every day are going to really make a big difference. And then going hand in hand with that, really, I think the second rule that I generally tell people if they want to know what they need to eat healthy is to eat more real food. And so if we're talking about real food, that's selecting the things that don't have a nutrition facts label. So that might be fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, real meats, real whole foods are the things that are generally going to help us to feel the best that we can.
Thank you, Sarah. I love that part about, if you usually grab this, just maybe once a week, change it out to see how you feel, right? Because again, it goes back to the conversation that we were having earlier around, Dana mentioned around, healthy body movement is, sometimes it's just doing, just something set that, make it realistic. Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just going to be like, oh, I can't do that. That seems like super overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some tips and tricks around maybe that, just trying to incorporate more healthier whole foods in our week?
Yeah, for sure. So I like to tell people that, the most important thing that we can do to help ourselves to eat better is to create a healthy food environment. And when I talk about the food environment, that's generally it's our home, especially during COVID and since COVID. Our home is our environment. For some of us, we might be going into, an office. It might be your food environment. It might be your workplace. But kind of building off what Chloe said about just having things nearby that are easy to access, we want to think about that with food too. We want to be making sure that the foods that we're having in our house are more of those real foods and less of those, the processed foods. And so the decision, I would say, starts at the grocery store to answer your question about how do we make it easier to have those foods around us. Maybe if say you just love
spicy Cheetos. There are some people that just love spicy Cheetos. I can't, I personally don't like them. But if you know that you love those and you are wanting to eat less of them, the easiest way to do it is to just not buy them and not bring them into your food environment, and maybe buy, grapes instead. Make that change before you even come into your house, and it'll just make it that much easier to make that choice. A lot of times I like to give, tell people that if you're most of the time going to grab what you have readily available to you as far as eating. Most of us, we might really want ice cream late at night, but a lot of times we're not going to jump in the car and drive and get it. So if we don't have it in the house, but maybe we have, like a 100% juice popsicle instead, maybe that'll kind of satisfy that same craving. And so, yeah, just making sure that you keep that home environment stocked with some good things. And similarly, if you know that you tend to lean towards, kind of overeating on things that you might not want to have, again, don't bring those into your home or your food environment. So I like to use the example of like an alcoholic in this situation. Like alcoholics, most of the time, like the best way for them to avoid alcohol is not to have access to it, not to have it in their house. So I know even I have little kids, and I have to, if I say I have like a box of goldfish where they can access it, they'll go and they'll eat it, nonstop. And so I have to not have it in the house or have it out of sight, out of mind for them. And, I have foods that I have to do that with for myself too. So being aware of, how am I changing this environment to make it a healthier place for me when I'm eating?
So, this kind of brings up a thought, because you're talking about starts at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And when I know in developing, and one of the things we want to do in these is develop independence, right? We want to talk about how can you develop independence? So if it's your guardian or somebody you live with is shopping for you and cooking for you, what steps can we take to kind of take the reins on that? So what are some tips for someone who doesn't cook, right? Start to develop those skills of avoiding the processed stuff and implementing more whole foods.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question. One of the most important things people can do when they want to really start, maybe cooking more at home and making some changes is to plan ahead. The whole process of grocery shopping, picking what to eat, preparing food, it is a process. And if we don't plan ahead, that's when we're more likely to go get some fast food or, just grab a snack for a meal instead of actually eating a meal. Because even if you get some food at the grocery store, if you haven't planned out what you're going to do with it, a lot of times it ends up going to waste. So step one is planning ahead what you are going to make. And for people who don't do it regularly, it might be just, I like to plan just 2 or 3 maybe meals that I know that I'm going to have in the next few days that I want to buy some groceries for. And so, maybe it's looking at, that you want to cook dinner twice in the week and maybe get something to make for breakfast, and get that plan and, get a recipe. Or if it's something, a lot of times it's something that doesn't even need a recipe. You might be making like a chicken breast and maybe a box of rice. And that's not something that doesn't need a recipe, but you still need to plan it so you make sure you have those items. But the plan is definitely number one. And then making that grocery list, because then sometimes we might think in our head what we're going to have, and then we go to the grocery store. If we don't have a list, then we tend to forget something. And then, you're going to make your recipe and you're missing one thing, and then I can't make it. So now I'm just going to, eat the mac and cheese that I have on the shelf. I love some of the tools that are just at our fingertips. Like I love the list feature in my phone for making my grocery list. I always keep a running list, a checklist. I have staples that I regularly buy, the things that I know I buy every single week that I keep a list of, but then also if I will add things to that list if I'm going to make special recipes. So keeping something electronic, or if you're a pen and paper person, keeping that list is helpful. But also like some of the grocery stores, if you're a curbside grocery person, some of those grocery apps are really awesome too. HEB, in fact, you can make a grocery list in their app, and then you can just have your staples on a list. And whenever you have to, weekly, when you have to go grocery shop, you go click, 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 and there it is. You're taking away all of that, the whole extra thought process of planning what you're going to add to your cart that week, if you can just click and add them to your cart. And then another, and that's also why I love curbside. If you don't have the time, or you don't really want to go into the store, curbside shopping makes it easy to just drive up and pick it up. And, a lot of people think it's more expensive, but if you allow yourself, I think at HEB, it's like 24 hours in advance, there's not a price increase. So you have that added convenience where you can sit at home with your list and, click and do your grocery order, and then you can just go pick it up. So those are just a few ways that I think it's easier to get the food into your house more efficiently.
And I love that idea of plan. It allows you to plan too, practically. Like you can kind of get and you can get familiar, because grocery stores can be overwhelming when you go into them. If you kind of like, there's so much stimulation happening around you at one time. So using the app to decide what you want, and not even having to darken the doors of the store is really a great idea. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. Yeah. My last question for you is what are some ways to start, for selective eaters, so individuals who may have sensory difficulty with certain types of foods, or people who tend, who might be more selective about what they eat. Any suggestions there?
Yeah, I like to tell people to, a lot of times I think people might be a selective eater and they want to change their eating habits. And I think they look at it as, maybe this big change we should make, but I like to just make little changes. So maybe somebody, is very picky about what they're eating, and they, maybe they're typically having like a burger with French fries, and that's their go-to. I like to not change the whole meal, maybe just tweak a part of it. So maybe, we're still going to have the burger, but maybe we're going to start trying to get some frozen sweet potato fries and bake those in the oven instead, and have those instead of the regular fries. Or, maybe then we can venture onto something like an oven roasted carrot along with our burger. But just making small changes rather than a big change can be helpful. And making changes to things that you're already eating. If maybe you're okay with pasta and you're used to, maybe you do make spaghetti, for example, but you have a hard time with the vegetables. Maybe what we could do is just cut up a little bit of vegetables and add it into the sauce and mix it in, kind of hide it, so it absorbs that same flavor, but you're getting some more nutrition. So just thinking of ways that you can really just make small changes to what you already know you're comfortable with.
Yeah, those are great ideas. And I completely I'm sorry, Dana and Chloe. Dana, you had a thought? Sorry. I didn't see the hand. I'm not seeing the hands. Sorry.
That's okay. I was just, based off of what had been shared, it just made me think of a couple of things that I've been able to do that have helped me that I thought might be useful for people. Because I know, and some of these are for if you do cook for yourself. I know sometimes it can be hard to have the spoons to do, your own cooking all the time. So if I do, keep some prepared foods or box mixes around for the days where I just can't cook, I think thinking about like, what's one thing I could add to this, to kind of get like one step closer to, maybe what would be more ideal. So like if I do make box macaroni and cheese or something, maybe I dump in some frozen broccoli or something, to get some extra veggies in there. So I feel like getting out of that like all or nothing thinking, I guess, around food, and like just giving yourself permission to like be where you are. And then I've been, letting myself get more of the like prepped vegetables and stuff from the produce department, and they are more expensive, but it's like if getting the bag of like pre-chopped broccoli or like carrot sticks makes me eat them, that's still cheaper than if I just have been like, oh, I can't cook, I'm just gonna order DoorDash or something. So I think, I feel like I was like kind of raised with like, spend like the least amount of money possible, but like sometimes getting the vegetables that have already kind of been prepped for you, if that's what helps you eat them, I feel like it's worth the investment. And then just thinking of like, healthier options that don't involve cooking, like maybe just like having that like hummus, and carrot sticks or something in the fridge. And then the last thing I think around like snack foods especially is like I've started to notice like when the urge to snack is actually stimming, and like there's something about like the crunchy texture of like chips or Cheetos or crackers or something that's like really satisfying, and trying to find other foods that can like mimic that sensation. So like, maybe I will just buy crunchier stuff and like keep around, apples or carrot sticks, or like even trail mix, because then it's like maybe I'm still getting some of the crunchy things, but I'm also getting some nuts. So I feel like paying attention to more of like the texture of foods and trying to notice if what I'm craving in that moment is a texture, and like, is there a healthy, and I don't like to say like healthy or unhealthy foods, but like, is there maybe like produce or like something else that could give me that texture, even if I still do eat, the chips or whatever sometimes too.
Chloe, did you want to add to that? And then Larissa?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, last couple years, like probably 5 years ago, I went on a keto diet. Well, like mostly keto. And I like lost like probably 30 pounds in the last couple years. But and then like during the pandemic, I was like, screw it. I'm gonna eat whatever I want. We're everyone was sort of in that mentality. And I started to, I was, it's like when my parents go golfing, I'm by myself and I can't get to the pantry or whatever. So I just keep like peanuts on my desk, and that this is my snack if I get hungry. And for lunch, I always have like, I'm just not a hungry person. I like never have a huge appetite, but I usually just have like apples or some kind of fruit and cheese, and like that fills me up pretty well, and it's pretty healthy too.
Love those choices. It sounds delicious right now. Makes me want to have some peanuts. Larissa, did you have something you wanted to say? Thank you, Chloe, for sharing those ideas.
Yes. So a couple things that I have found helpful is kind of timing that I eat every 4 hours or so, because I don't really have a sense of hunger, and that goes with having sensory differences. I just process things differently. So I find that helps. It can prevent irritability and stuff. The other thing is I have tried different textures, but I'm also, in order to kind of like minimize something that I find stressful with food, and that's making choices, I will kind of think ahead, and I will have like already 2 choices ahead selected, and that has significantly cut back my stress related to food, related to making choices, particularly if I'm already feeling burnout or something. And then I think that was it.
Thank you, Larissa, so much. Yeah, because it can affect how we feel. Like Sarah was saying earlier, kind of food can be energy or it can be training, Sarah, did you want to wrap up the nutrition conversation with anything in particular?
First of all, I love all your thoughts. Those are all really good tips and hopefully helpful for people who are listening in. I know sometimes if you're someone who doesn't cook, it can be hard to, just jump in and do it. So I love some of the tips of, sometimes it is better, it might be helpful to just buy the pre-chopped veggies, or, sometimes I like to think if you're a little hesitant to cook, maybe you make a frozen lasagna and maybe steam some, frozen veggies. That way you're cooking a little bit, but it's not this overwhelming task, but you're still able to make some things at home. But I am going to share a link. I don't know if you all have heard of Jamie Oliver, but Jamie Oliver is a chef who is pretty popular. He had a popular
British
show a few years ago, but he has a mission of teaching everybody to cook. And so I'm going to share a link to some recipes that they have pictures and just they're recipes that people can really learn from and start to learn to cook some easy but delicious meals with some really easy to follow steps. So hopefully people find that helpful.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for doing that. Because I hope people listening to this are thinking in terms of like, like how can I start doing this on my own, right? Or even things that may seem sometimes downright daunting. So we really appreciate you sharing that because that's really helpful.
I don't know if it's still anywhere that you could find it, but I feel like Alton Brown's Good Eats was good about that too, where he would like explain how to cook and like the reasons behind why you do certain things certain ways, so that like not only are you learning how to make that specific recipe, but you're also kind of getting tools and just learning how to like extrapolate to like cook other things and sort of understand like how cooking works, which is like so important.
Yeah, he kind of he focuses on the science behind it, which I think is really cool.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm trying to spell. I always misspell recipe. Why can't I ever spell the word recipe? That is like. Do what?
Recite.
Recite. There it is. I can't do it. I'm 45 and I can't spell recipe. So Sarah, thank you for sharing that resources and for sharing these ideas, because I'm just kind of thinking I'm gonna start doing the HEB listing because I think that, or the app, because that's such a great tool to use. And I think I'm gonna try and have my 12-year-old start doing that himself too, because I think that's really helpful. Okay, I would love, so Larissa is presenting. We're gonna, I'm gonna have Larissa talk about a really important topic. I wanna make sure, I know we're kind of coming towards the end of the panel tonight, but a big part of what we discuss around healthy habits has to do with making appointments and how to, sometimes making our own doctor's appointments and keeping them, and what that looks like can be the hardest thing. It feels like sometimes the most overwhelming and hardest thing to do. And so Larissa, I'm going to hand it to you because you're kind of the pro here. And I'm so excited to hear you talk a little bit more about this, because I know you got some really helpful tips.
Right. And healthcare is very complex. So just like any of these other topics tonight, it could have honestly had its own webinar or panel dedicated to it. So I'm just going to do my best to get into this in about 10 minutes or so.
If you need to go over a little, it's okay. Like that's okay too. But
okay. Well, anyways, I'll go ahead and try it. We'll see. So part of advocating for your health is making your own appointments. And for making a new patient appointment, you typically have to schedule it over the phone or in person. And I know I can find phone communication a little bit trickier. Sometimes there's more communication breakdown with that. So I found this really handy worksheet, and I'm going to share my screen in just a second. And I would like to go over that because it's very super helpful. And also we will be linking some of these resources that I'm referencing. I also added the drama therapy in my YouTube channel to it in the Sleep Foundation.
Thank you, Larissa.
Having a slight technology glitch. 1 second.
That is totally okay.
Technology is just unpredictable. There you go. Cool. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is on making an appointment. So this worksheet kind of goes through making an appointment. So one of the first things is try to make sure that you have everything that you'll need. And that will typically be an insurance card if you have insurance, and information like your date of birth. And also if you have a doctor already, be prepared to already have their name. If you don't have a doctor already, when you make the phone call, you can say that you're looking to make a new patient appointment and you want to see a provider that's seeing new patients. It's also important to find out about insurance. When you're on the phone call, the person scheduling the appointment will go over this with you. So that if you're in doubt, you can always ask if this provider is covered under my insurance. So another thing to have on hand before you call is kind of think about what days you have available so you can be prepared to schedule. So the sample is a Princess Aurora, and she's trying to make an appointment because she's having a specific problem. So there is a difference between a well checkup, which is an appointment that's typically like once a year, and it's just to make sure that everything is okay. And it's not when you're having a particular problem. But then sometimes people get sick or they have a chronic problem and they have to make a different appointment for that. So this is for someone that's having a specific health concern. So in the phone call, they'll ask your name and your date of birth, that type of thing. And some important stuff to ask is, once you've made the appointment, ask if you need to bring anything. And a very common thing is a list of prescription medications and also a list of allergies. So if you're allergic to latex or medications, be sure to have that written down. It's also essential to write down everything in one place. So this is really important for organizing. So when you're making the appointment, the person scheduling it will say a lot of information, like the provider's name, if you didn't already know it, and the address and the time and the date. And it's really important to have all of this in one place so it's easy to find. I find putting it in my calendar and a notes app really handy. So you can see that there's information for the date and the time of the appointment and where it's located, and that's all in one page. There's also a sample that I'm going to jump to. 1 second, where it shows it all on one page.
I don't know if it's just
Oh.
I'm only seeing the first work page of the making an appointment worksheet with the telephone and the doctor's number. For the doctor's
So
name.
you don't see the page with the check marks?
I'm not, is it just me or am I?
It's not
No,
just,
I'm seeing that page too.
I see the making an appointment worksheet.
Okay.
Oh, okay. It said it paused it for some reason. Okay, do you see? What do you see now?
It says you've started screen sharing. But
Oh.
I'm not seeing anything beyond that.
For some reason, it's not letting me resume it.
Huh, that's odd.
I'll go ahead and hold on. I can try to go through this without sharing my
Okay,
screen.
yeah.
I can hit the link. Okay, I'll go ahead and put the link before I forget, if that's okay. Because there's a packet that's actually, if people wanted to
Mhm.
or able to, they can actually access it. And it's exactly what I was looking through is available right now. So that might be a workaround. Like technology is just very unpredictable. But
Yeah.
it's in case anybody wants to do that, is the packet of fillable worksheets and images for practice for healthcare visits. And everything on there is what I was going through. So for those that are wanting like a visual, that's available. And I just put that in the chat. So that should hopefully work. Okay, so back to scheduling the appointment. And once you're able to like look at the resource list, it shows important information like what a benefit or a health insurance card looks like. And that's something that can be helpful just to get used to. It's also important to kind of, again, like I said, know why you're making an appointment. So in the sample, it was Princess Aurora or Sleeping Beauty, and her problem was that she had been sleeping during the day for the last 3 weeks. So that was the reason for the appointment. It can be helpful to write that down so you know the reason, but also there's a very handy worksheet that I found. Fortunately, I can't share it, but I will do my best to explain it real quick. So, and it will be in that packet. So it's called a pulled carts, and it's an acronym, and it's basically things to discuss, things to already think about before you see a doctor. I'm going to see if I can put in the chat. Perfect. So looks like the P got cut off. So the P was for previous history. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat. So this is basic stuff that doctors will ask, and it will be in that resource packet. And a lot of that has to do with like when you're having a problem, they'll want to know things about the location of where it hurts or what the problem is, and try to your best to write these down ahead, because it can be very hard in the moment. A lot of doctor appointments are like 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and they can go by really quick. So it's really helpful to write this ahead, and also to write down 3 to 5 questions max is what I find most helpful. So that can be helpful. Another thing that can be related, and it's important when you're scheduling the appointment, to let the scheduler know if you need accommodations for the appointment. And that's accommodations that would affect the structure of the appointment, like how long, or if you have like a mobility impairment or you need an interpreter. So that's really important. And you can try to make that during the appointment. And there's a few different things you can say for that. But you can describe your need and try to phrase it as like a question or a request. And what I find helpful is I kind of throw out different ideas. So I might sometimes need extended time for communication. So I'll be like, one idea I have is that I can have the first appointment of the day, or the first appointment before lunch, or the last appointment of the day, if they say that I can't have an extended appointment. Or I give another idea, like I can schedule a follow-up appointment within a month to kind of go over my questions. And then I can ask them if they have any other ideas, and that can help. So related to this is another part, and this is important for advocating for healthcare, is just to be aware of, there can be some differences that doctors aren't prepared for necessarily. And one of them, when I was younger, and I promise the story will be really brief, but when I was a lot younger, I had a problem where I wouldn't give enough context, because the waiting room would, it would be noisy and stuff. And by the time I was done waiting, I would already be I'd be anxious. So one of the things that happened is I told a nurse that was taking my history, I said I had been drinking a lot lately, and she did not clarify what I meant. And when I got my medical records, it turns out that they thought I meant alcohol, and that can actually affect my medical care, because that could affect because the amount that they put, I meant non-alcoholic. Turns out I had dry mouth from a medication side effect. And that's what I was trying to describe. It was making me feel like I was thirsty, but unfortunately the nurse misinterpreted it and didn't ask a follow-up question. So that's another reason why I highly recommend trying to get your records, but just keep in mind, you will see errors. I don't know if I've ever seen 100% error-free medical record ever. But it is important if you see something that will affect your care. And again, that the alcohol thing would have affected my care. So that's where it is really important to speak up. And there's usually a medical record office for that. Really quickly, it's also important, I'll just go over like some rights of medical care real quick. And that's you are able to ask for accommodations, that because sometimes having the same care that everybody else gets is not fair, or it's not equitable. So that's where it's important. And in those links, I have Disability Rights Texas, and they can help if someone's experiencing, a discrimination or they're having trouble getting healthcare. So that's an important source. And I also have a sample of accommodation request, and I have a link to a web page where you can actually make your own accommodations. Real quick, one last accommodation that could be helpful is if someone's finding sensory issues really difficult during a waiting room, they can say something like, can I be text so I can wear my noise canceling headphones, or can I wait in my car? And that can work. So I know I gave a lot of information, but I think if this is a really important topic, the other thing I would highly recommend for new patients is ask if you can get the paperwork sent ahead, because that would be really helpful. So.
And Larissa just, and I feel like you could do an entire thing on this because it's such an important topic and you know so much about it, and your information on how to effectively advocate during these situations is very important. I know we're kind of coming to the end, but the link you shared, and I want to draw everybody's attention to it, this link that Larissa shared, super important. Please click on it. It's very valuable resources in that. Please click on it, have it on your computer. We'll try and remember to send it out to everybody, because I also want to make sure you have everyone else's contact information from this presentation. So, and I think everyone put that in there, in the chat. So go through the chat, but this link sheet that Larissa just provided is really thorough and great. So Larissa, thank you for doing that. And it has these worksheets and stuff in it for helping set your doctor's appointments, because you got to start doing that on your own, right? And for those of us that aren't doing that yet, it's good practice, right? And even scripting out how you're going to go about doing that's really helpful too. And getting to them, especially the dentist. All right, are there any closing thoughts before we close out tonight? Everyone has shared such robust, awesome things.
I have a really quick tip from what you said. Setting reminders, so that will help with remembering appointments.
Hey Amy, do you have any resources for diagnoses on ADHD and autism stuff? Because I feel like I'm having so much ADHD type stuff right now, and I don't know where to go for that.
I do actually. I have someone I can send you, because you're here in the Austin area. I will email you, Chloe, the name of the person I used for my ADHD testing. So I will be happy to send that to you.
Okay, great.
In an email. Yeah, thanks for asking. And I want to thank all of our panelists for being on the call tonight. And there was so much great conversation around these robust issues. And I just, I appreciate everyone for being here. Thank you so much. And all of our participants, thank you for coming. Yeah, there will be this was recorded, so we will have this available pretty soon on YouTube. And but we will feel free to email us any questions, follow-up questions you can think of or that you may have. So thank you all for being here tonight.
Bye. My first panel was great. Thank you guys.
Chloe, you did a great job.
Thank
I
you.
love it.
Fabulous job.
Fabulous.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.